Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much for being here and sharing the space with me and with everyone here. And thank you to the organizers as well for putting on an amazing event. This is just such a privilege to be a part of something, what I think to be really the most powerful movement of human freedom in the world today. And these events, these little gatherings of people, are an integral part of that movement. So thank you for coming here and being here, sacrificing your time and effort to be in this place. I would like to dive into Bitcoin's social layer in this short 15-minute little space of time. And this is really something that you could dive into and do a treatise on. It's a very broad subject. So I'd like to go over just an overview of some of the aspects of Bitcoin's social layer, kind of define it a little bit, and then dive into how I think it's going to really impact the world. So what is Bitcoin's social layer? Bitcoin itself is a digital protocol, right? It's software and computers, software and hardware kind of working together, and it's digital protocol. It's there, it's working, it's kind of this inanimate thing, right? The thing that gives it value, though, is each of us individuals who are using it and enthusiastic about it, and we're using it for specific purposes. That's why it's valuable. It's the only reason my Bitcoin is worth, I think it's $40,000 right now. Hopefully it goes down a little bit so I can buy a little more later today. It's because I can take that Bitcoin to somewhere else, and someone else will exchange that Bitcoin. I can exchange it for goods and services, right? So in a very real sense, we are the Bitcoin network. Each of us who are using it, each of us who are collaborating with each other, connecting with each other, we make up the Bitcoin network. So one way of defining Bitcoin's social layer is the people and communities and relationships that are all interconnected between the users and enthusiasts of Bitcoin, right? Another way to think about it is seeing it within the other layered structure of the Bitcoin network. The Bitcoin network is made up of many layers that are all sort of intertwined and reliant upon one another. For instance, you have the technological layer, right? Technological layer is made up of the hardware, the software, everything, the protocols, the technological stack that's running Bitcoin that we can all rely on, that it's just there, right? There's also the philosophical layer. Philosophical layer is made up of all of the ideas around and ideation and around what Bitcoin actually is and how it's impacting humans, both in a spiritual way and a physical way. So you have that technological layer, the philosophical layer, and you have the cultural layer. Cultural layer, this is my interpretation. Maybe some other people have different opinions. But I think the cultural layer is made up of all of the beautiful creativity and that is being formed by individual users and enthusiasts of Bitcoin. So you have beautiful art pieces made by my friend Madex and Crypto Graffiti and many, many other artists around the world. You also have content creators building beautiful and engaging educational pieces and documentary pieces, as well as novels and movies being built, right? You have this creative force that's sort of interpreting but also bringing into the world what Bitcoin is. You also, beyond the cultural and philosophical layer, you have the social layer. And again, these are all interconnected, but the social layer, it's us, it's the people. And so when we're gathering in a place like this is Bitcoin. You're seeing its manifestation in real life. So that's something that I'm personally really interested in. One of the ways that Bitcoin's social layer manifests in real life is something that a lot of us in the Bitcoin world like to talk about, called Citadel theory. Citadel theory is this idea that in this like new clown world, chaotic time that we're moving into, just like the speaker before me was addressing in great detail, there's a lot of uncertainty, and we're very drawn to this idea of finding land, finding structures and portions of kind of defining our own space that's going to give us access to this kind of survival triangle, right? Of food and water, all the natural resources, as well as shelter, protection from the elements, and security, right? Protection from theft and all of the negative aspects of human interaction that can occur, right? So we have this idea of Citadel theory, and how many of you have fantasized about your particular citadel, your ideal citadel? Right. You kind of put it in, imagine it in your mind right now. Think of what it is. So this is my ideal citadel, right? If you look at the photo there, it's a beautiful piece of art that I found when I was going down the rabbit hole myself with Bitcoin. And I think it puts into imagery what a lot of us think about when we think about this citadel and our own individual pursuits of personal freedom and sovereignty. So it's got the castle, it's got this giant orb spaceship portal type thing that can transport anywhere in the globe, right? It's fortified lands, pretty hard to attack that structure, right? My question really for you as you imagine that ideal citadel of yours is, who is in there? What do those walls protect? Right? We can establish an extremely powerful and fortified structure and system of survival, right? But what the hell is the point of that castle in the sky and fortified structure without a community and a meaningful life for it to protect? So that's kind of something that I think is missed a lot when we talk about this idea of citadels, and we talk about wanting to create as much sovereignty in the personal, in the physical realm as possible. Because Bitcoin is this personal sovereignty movement. It's a movement of personal responsibility. It's allowing us to take ownership of our financial lives. It's allowing us to take ownership of so many aspects of our lives that have been really stolen from us. And we're sort of taking that back into our own personal control. So it is an individual sovereignty movement restoring personal self-ownership to the individual, right? So a lot of Bitcoiners tend to gravitate towards that side of the spectrum where we want to establish our own personal sovereignty. But there is this other aspect as well, where we are not men in an island. Like, we live in the world as humans, and really as people, we've evolved to be in community. So as we think about like what we're building, I think the foundation of what we're building is going to be your community. The foundation of your Citadel is your community. And so that's one of the reasons why I've been personally interested in gathering people together for Bitcoin meetups and attending events like this to connect with as many people who are like-minded as possible. Another kind of component of Citadel theory that I think is missing from a lot of people's, and my own included, our strategy and sort of what we think we're building when we think of our ideal Citadel is this component of a city set on a hill. If you walk through some of the beautiful medieval towns of Europe, you'll see actual citadels that were built in the Middle Ages. Like, right here you have displayed the palace, Peña Palace in Sintra, which, if you guys have ever been to Portugal or have the chance to go, be sure to go and walk through Sintra. Maybe drop a little acid beforehand if you want. You can do that as well. But as you walk through the cities, a city, especially like Sintra, it's a village of palaces, of castles. And you'll notice these castles, they're not hidden from view. They're not hiding under a mountain, right? They're on display for all to see. It's a display of splendor, and for the community that it protects, it's a symbol of strength and fortitude and anchorage into the land. What we're building in our Bitcoin citadels, I think, should have that same essence, where we are not necessarily showing off, but maybe sometimes showing off. But we're not afraid of people seeing the freedom that Bitcoin enables in our lives, right? I personally think, and as we've discussed a lot, we're moving into a very chaotic time. And as we go into that realm, if we want to collect and we want to advance Bitcoin knowledge, we want to advance Bitcoin adoption, in my mind, and at least in what I've experienced so far in my journey, the best way to advance that is by setting an example of what free life actually is like. And you can build your cabin in the woods and your retreat. I think that's an important part of your strategy when you think about having a fortified structure of security and natural resources. What could really move that needle in Bitcoin adoption and in your own personal life is thinking of how you're representing yourself to the world, and how other people can see that and be inspired to make that change in their own life. So I'm about an eighth of the way through this talk. I've got like 2 more minutes. This is just a little bit of my background, so you know a little bit who I am. I'm personally, I started as a preacher in college, moved away from structured Christianity for a while, but when I was studying theology and wanting to kind of represent God's word to other people and communicate it, what we focused on was gathering churches, building communities in church. I've also been able to host many fun Bitcoin gatherings, parties. And does anyone know who Guy Swan is? Okay, so you know how Guy Swan is the guy who's read more about Bitcoin than anyone else you know? I might be the guy who's hosted more Bitcoin meetups and parties than anyone else you know. I've hosted, but I did learn about someone yesterday who's been hosting meetups since 2013, so that's, predates me a little bit. I don't know if I'll be able to hold that title for very long if I'm challenged. But yeah, I've hosted about 77 Bitcoin-only events over the past 2 years, and this is what we are capable of doing, is creating aesthetic and fun environments for communities to develop, because community is an organic thing. It's not something you can just like write down these precepts and send out an email group, be like, we're a community now. It's something that has to form naturally. Relationships form naturally. If they're forced, it's not really fun to be in a forced relationship, is it? So having fun is going to be an integral part of your Citadel strategy, and this is what we like to do. So if you're one of my friends, or if you spend any time with me, one of the things we like to do is have fun. Like, we're going to go surfing in the afternoon, this afternoon. This event is filled with this, right? It's filled with fun. And that's one of the best things that I really connected with in my kind of journey down the rabbit hole was, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. That's something that Trace Mayer used to say all the time. So I'm at my 15 minutes. I'd like to leave that with you guys.
Yeah, we still got 9
what are we?
minutes, dude.
Oh, we got 9 minutes?
Yeah.
All right. Let's keep going. So right here you have, this is a depiction of the Bitcoin network by Dirgigi. If you guys don't follow him on Twitter, Dirgigi is one of my favorite Bitcoiners. He's an amazing guy. One of the first people that I interviewed on my podcast when I was learning about Bitcoin, and he really helped me to form a proper understanding of what Bitcoin is and what it's capable of. So he has listed all these different components, like we have the idea, the code, the protocol, nodes, the network, consensus, value, the markets, moneyness, and Bitcoiners. So you have this cyclical, dynamic structure thing that Bitcoin is, right? It's all these different things kind of connected and moving through the world. The technological layer of Bitcoin, as we know, is built on Satoshi's genius white paper that connects SHA-256 encryption with proof of work, which is a way that we're able to actually prove energy expenditure has occurred and have digital record of it, along with the difficulty adjustment that ties it all in this dynamic, beautiful dance of energy production, nodes securing the network, and of course, all of us using it. Throughout history, humans have used technology to protect ourselves from the forces of nature. We've used it to build shelters, we've used it to hunt and gather, like these gentlemen are doing. And we've used it to build and survive as communities throughout the world. That's how our species has propagated throughout the world. So it has this protective element. We use it to survive, but we also use it to go further into nature and to enjoy nature. one of the things that I love about this area and Costa Rica and really all of Central America is just how connected we are to nature around us. When we're in the jungle, surfing is so popular here, right? That's one of my favorite things to do. And it's, to me, that's a beautiful imagery of using this technology, using this surfboard that you've built, and going into the chaos of nature to go further into it and to enjoy it more than you could without that tool, without that piece of technology. So Bitcoin, I think in order to really think about it properly, it is a protective tool that's protecting us from monetary debasement and from the attack on our time and our resources from those who would want to steal it from us. But it's also enabling us to enjoy and thrive in this really powerful new way. So that, obviously you can see the Bitcoin miners running off of natural gas, using these natural resources to bring it into digital value. Just wanted to touch on a philosophical aspect of what we're doing here. Have you ever? Who's read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig? Okay, a couple of you. It's a really beautiful philosophical work. One of the greatest American philosophers of our time. And one of the things that he talks about in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance is this concept of interconnected channels of communication. And what he points out is in our current state of civilization, we have hyperconnectivity. We have information transfer through the internet that's accelerating at an incredible rate. And so we are able to communicate very fast, which leads to the hyper-connected society where we can read tweets that are posted immediately about news going on across the globe. And what he says is, this is drawing us towards focusing on what is new, only what is new, and that's what is most important. But what he dives further in and says, well, is that the right thing to focus on? Is what is new really what is most important? And he elaborates, no, it's not. And he says, the question that I'm interested in is what is best, right? Bitcoin is this new addition to that interconnected world that we have now that's enabling us to really find out what is best. And it's able to we're able to sift through that noise of everything that's new. Like, what are the Kardashians wearing right now? Or what's the latest gossip, right? To what is the most important, valuable thing that we could be spending our time on right now. Just from, I want to touch on the cultural perspective as well. We're this little ragtag group of Bitcoiners, so, sort of an obscure group of miscreants, you might say. Not all of us were like, I don't know, I wasn't the most popular kid in school. Any of you guys? No? Okay. But, so, we're this little ragtag group, and not necessarily the most influential people in the world. We have some So it's growing. There's a growing group of us who maybe have a say in certain things, and some people's attention. But it's similar to surfers back in the 60s. Surfers in the 60s were not cool people. They were not the Kelly Slaters and Laird Hamiltons that we see now today. They were the outcasts of society. So we can see from a cultural development standpoint how something like a group of surfers in the 60s could change throughout history to where in the 90s we have Laird Hamilton and Kelly Slater on GQ, and of course the greatest movie of all time, Point Break. Right? So now surfing is like one of the coolest things you could do. So I just want to kind of open your minds a little bit to see how the trajectory of cultural development can change over time, and show that as you're having fun, as you're building these communities, these citadels, there's infinite possibilities of how things can turn out. So with that, may you guys live a meaningful life and enjoy your freedom as sovereign individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, John. That was awesome. I love how there's so many different roles for people to play with this whole Bitcoin thing. We have Ben coming up to speak soon. He's going to talk about